I never pull back from criticizing Muslim fundamentalists when they commit horrors, so nor can I or will I remain silent when Christians act appallingly. And the current campaign against homosexuals in Uganda is largely the result of indigenous evangelical Christians and American evangelical groups pumping money and support into this anti-gay campaign. Yeah, I've got to say it. Look, I'm not making a direct comparison between the countless acts of Islamic terror and what is going on in Uganda, but as a Catholic Christian and frankly as a conservative, I have to speak out against this travesty of justice and humanity. Have a look at the great broadcaster and author Stephen Fry, who is gay, interviewing the Ugandan Minister of, believe it or not, Ethics and Integrity.
I want to tell you point blank that there's no way you can impose your attitude to me.
I don't want to. I'm asking questions.
I am a typical Ugandan, and my role and mandate here is to empower Ugandans to uphold moral values and principles. And we don't discriminate. However, we say, please, please, it's already bad that you are in that status. Don't promote. Don't recruit, don't encourage others to come into your very unfortunate status.
This is what's unique in Uganda, this extraordinary idea of yours of promotion. I was all my life, I was subjected to indoctrination of how to be heterosexual. It never worked on me. It never, if you're born that
what
way,
I'm telling you
is, born gay,
why don't you,
or you're born straight,
no,
or just let people be. That's
finish,
integrity.
Then you are taking me for one who should come to join you, and therefore
tolerate
I don't want
you to join me. I have no wish for you to
in
join
this country, anybody who manifests himself
be
gay must be checked.
I don't want one more homosexual in the world. I just want each one to be treated with love and dignity.
Wow, what a fanatic. It's unbelievable, really. And more of that charm of the minister later. Now, Uganda considered imposing the death penalty for the crime of homosexuality, but it's diluted the legislation. It will now allow those convicted of homosexuality to just be in prison for life, defying international disapproval from various Western donor nations. The president of Uganda formally introduced the Anti-Homosexuality Act, which also outlaws the promotion of homosexuality and requires citizens, this is really nasty, to denounce to the police anyone suspected of being gay. Quote from the president, "No study has shown that you can be homosexual by nature. That's why I've agreed to sign the bill," he explained. "Outsiders cannot dictate to us. This is our country. I advise friends from the West not to make this an issue, because if they make it an issue, the more they will lose. If the West doesn't want to work with us because of homosexuals, then we have enough space to ourselves here." End of quote. Well, look, to a degree, I know what he means. The Americans are becoming extremely precious about this and questioning continuing foreign aid. Banal hypocrisy. Saudi Arabia treats women appallingly, let alone gay people, but it remains a close US ally and recipient of enormous amounts of Washington's cash. Uganda, of course, has no oil reserves. No, the removal of aid would hurt an already hungry and impoverished people. That's not the way to do this. But the deeper issue here is that this is unjust, unfair, inhumane, anti-life, wrong, immoral, unethical, anti-God, dark, hideous, and bloody stupid. This isn't the place or the time for a discourse about the nature of sexuality. But in my experience and from my reading, if people are not born gay, they certainly find themselves attracted to those of the same gender at a very early age. Some might choose their sexuality, maybe a few women for political reasons, but anyway, that's largely irrelevant. What consenting people do in private, as long as it harms nobody else, is frankly absolutely up to them. I find some of the excesses of the Pride Parade vulgar and annoying. I find some of the intolerance and triumphalism of gay activists in North America and Europe to be offensive. But this has got nothing to do with the fact that in Uganda, and much of Africa and Russia, and even allegedly progressive Brazil, gay people are beaten up, persecuted, killed. Imagine just for a moment if your child was gay and suffered such a fate merely because of their sexuality. Imagine if your child had to live in hiding, was called a pervert or a sodomite, was beaten, murdered. No, none of my kids are gay, nothing to do with it, but this is not about personal sympathy, it's to do with human empathy. People in Uganda are mistreated not because they are bad, evil, dishonest or cruel, but just because they love people of their own sex. It's barbaric, it's unacceptable. Uganda has a rape crisis. It struggles against poverty. Its schools are underfunded. Infrastructure is poor. AIDS at endemic levels. Yet the government believes that arresting gay people is a solution to their problems. Hey, why not just blame it on the Jews? National newspapers out there have outed gay people, leading to beatings, killings. Gay kids terrified of speaking to anyone about how they feel because the police may become involved, and so they're alone and isolated, and often they take their own lives. Here's Stephen Fry again with the Uganda Minister of Ethics and Integrity, but be warned that some of what he said is not only ridiculous, but disturbing and revolting.
What are the values that we get from homosexuality? What value do you get?
Love.
Unlike from Christianity, love.
Yes.
Love when you destroy your back of your brother.
Destroy them what?
The back of your brother.
The back?
I have got, yes, I've got my dear brothers who have come here because their backs are oozing with a pus.
Most sodomy takes place in a heterosexual life. It is just a
that is in Europe. That is in Europe there.
No,
that is in your place.
No, all around the world.
In Africa, never. In Africa, one
There's
will
no
not
rape
mistake.
in Africa, is there? There are no young girls being raped in Africa.
But
There are thousands of them.
but-
So surely heterosexuality is far more dangerous to children than homosexuality. Far more. It's a country where heterosexual rape is almost endemic.
I say, let them do it, but do the
let
right
them do
way.
it.
The right way.
Oh, let them do it the right way. Let them rape children.
God. And to some in Canada who are convinced that there is a gay agenda, a conspiracy, something sinister going on, oh, please, do you seriously believe that gay people are trying to convert or recruit? I don't know any homosexuals who want to make other people homosexual, but I do know quite a few homophobes who want to make other people homophobic. Everyone, please just calm down and see through the collective to the individual, the ordinary flesh and blood, living, loving individual. As for Uganda, you are better than this. You are so much better than this.
Do you personally dislike homosexuals?
Of course, they are disgusting. I never knew what they were doing. That's how I've been told recently that what they do is terrible.
Well, you're probably laughing, and I'm laughing as well, but you've got to remember that in Uganda, which already faces poverty and so many other issues, particularly kids, but adults too, who are gay, who are physically terrified right now. And if anyone out there, I know it's very personal, if anyone out there because of their faith, and I have a very strong faith, I try to live up to it, if because of your faith you think, well, maybe there's something good behind this, or in the name of God, think again. Please think again and just put yourself in their position for a few moments. Graham Reed, director of the LGBT group for human rights in New York what's the name of the overall organization? Is it Human Rights Watch, Graham?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Now, it's very hard in North America for us to comprehend this. And there's a danger of us becoming very colonial and saying, oh, these ridiculous people in Africa, they just don't understand it. But there must be some sort of context. Where does this come from?
Well, the interesting fact about most of the sodomy laws that exist in the 38 countries in Africa is that their origins are colonial. They're the vestiges of British colonial rule. And the archaic language of that illustrates it, the prohibition against carnal knowledge against the order of nature.
Well, to a degree, but I'm not sure if that really holds completely true, because, I mean, most of the countries that have the death penalty for homosexuality in Africa are Islamic, and some of them weren't colonized by the British at all. But, I mean, India, for example, I mean, homosexuality is actually still illegal after a Supreme Court ruling in India,
Yes.
but it's a very different attitude. It is, in many ways, a British attitude. It's actually relatively gentle, although the legalities sound quite harsh.
Yes, and again, that the law that is under dispute is a colonial era law. Section 377 again is a British colonial law. So the origins of them are British. What is curious is that they're taken on as a marker of national identity. And the laws we're seeing now are, of course, much more extreme and go much further than those laws.
Well, far more so. And of course, Britain and many countries that were part of British culture reformed their opinion and their legislation many years ago. But what is interesting about Africa is, if anything, it's not getting better, it's getting worse.
Well, if we look specifically at Uganda, as is so often the case with laws that discriminate against LGBT people, is underlying that is a whole range of human rights abuses. And that's what we're seeing in Uganda. The clampdown on civil society, the clampdown on non-government organizations that are critical of the government, a clampdown on the media, a clampdown on political opposition. So in that context, gay people become a convenient scapegoat for the government's agenda to distract attention away from broader human rights abuses that are taking place.
Do you really think that's, with all due respect, a sufficient answer? Because I think there's something more profound about this reaction towards gay people.
Well, it is the case that these laws are very extreme. But I think in each and every case, if we look at Russia, if we look at Nigeria, if we look at Uganda, it's a classic moral panic that you pick on a vulnerable minority that's perceived to be dangerous, in this case to traditional values, for instance, or to what's termed as African culture, as if that's one thing. But it's a convenient scapegoat. And I think it is the case that it's usually used to distract attention from other issues. If we look at Zimbabwe, we know in elections coming around by the rhetoric, the homophobic rhetoric of President Mugabe. It's always used in a context to detract attention from other issues.
Mugabe, though, has been obsessed with the issue for the longest time, even when he's not running for re-election. I mean, that the man has spoken about, I mean, he can be, I think he's a vicious individual, but in some areas he's, I suppose, quite progressive. But when it comes to the gay issue, he sounds like a monster from thousands of years ago.
Well, he does use it strategically and politically, yes, as do many others. And the trouble is that it creates a climate in which violence can take place with impunity, and that's the concern in Uganda, especially with the publication of the names of some 200 individuals. It creates a climate in which, you know, there's a kind of mob reaction towards LGBT people. We saw it in Nigeria, we saw it in Russia.
They promised 200, they delivered about 91 names. And again, when we read the headlines, it seems almost like a parody. The language is so archaic and so scatological, but there's a reality to this. Just very quickly, what to do about it? I think the idea of withdrawing aid is a repugnant one. I don't think ordinary people should suffer because of the attitudes of the government.
That's right. But in many ways, these laws make the work of internationally funded non-government organizations impossible, because it makes it illegal to be promoting homosexuality. And that's so vaguely defined that it would include the work of groups working in health, for instance, any work around men who have sex with men, any human rights organization that even touches on LGBT issues are now made illegal. So in some respects, governments are required to review certain aspects of their support to Uganda because they're rendered illegal by the laws themselves.
All right. Graham, appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.